Welcome to the 7th episode of Coconut TV. Today we're going to be sitting down with Chef Andre of Restaurant Andre in Singapore. He's one of the most creative chefs that I've ever met. Enjoy.
My mom was a fantastic cook, so I learned for all my technique, or I trained my palate with her, and that's where I decided to become a chef since I was 13, and I started to work in all the top of French restaurants, and I decided to go to France to work for all the best chef in France, from south to the north. And just after my 30th birthday, I decided to come back to Asia and start off my own business. So that's where I started the adventure in Asia. The reason I started in Singapore, because when I first started, I'm not quite sure that where I should settle myself down in Asia, because I spend most of my time in France. And I feel that in Singapore, it's an entry level for Asia, and it's easier to adapt myself to the culture, to the people here, and I think it's slightly more international, that people should understand more of my type of cuisine or my concept, because that's completely brand new. The food that we serve, we have a practice, the practice that we respect. We call it an auto philosophy. So it basically said 8 different elements represent 8 different dishes. The 8 elements, you could change the sequence on the daily basis based on the produce, and then we create 8 dishes to it. So it could be texture, or artisan, or memory. So each dish has a theme to it. And all the produce arrive in the morning, and then that's where we decide what we're going to cook. We work directly with our source, which is fishermen and farmers. So we don't know what we're going to receive on the date until we open the box. Because that's what I found the difficulty at the beginning when I first arrived in Singapore, because you don't have a market just outside of your restaurant. Everything's mostly imported. All the quality produce are imported. So how can we have a consistent top produce every time they arrive in Singapore? So we give the authorization to our farmers and fishermen, and let them pick what is the best top on the market that day. Because we all know the best fish on the market, they won't be 50 or 60, they will probably 2, the best ones, and we want that too. So we only order a certain quantity every day, because that's to keep us running, but we don't restrict to tell them what we need. If you have the best clams today, then you get a clam. So every day we get a different mixture of fresh eel, abalone, or giant clams, or rockfish, a different type of produce, and then we just work around it. But we know that we get the best produce on the market that day. So based on that, and then we create 8 different dishes. So the people will get not just an freshest produce, but it's also freshest ideas that we create on the day itself. Our philosophy, based on the 8 different elements, we don't force ourselves to create different menus. We still based on the seasonalities, based on the availability of the produce overseas, whether in Europe or in Japan, or even local produce. We're working with the chicken farm locally, and to teach them what they should feed the chicken to have a better produce a better egg. So that's what we do. And I think most important is we don't force ourselves to create. We try to enhance the produce by our creativity, but not overwork on the produce. And that's what we keep focusing on. I think every day it's a very interesting process that when all the produce arrive, normally the chef will have a conventional way that the chef would have an idea. So, okay, I'm gonna cook salmon, I'm gonna pan fry it, I'm gonna go with different sauces. We look at the produce first, and then we decide what works best for the produce. It could be smoked, it could be charcoal grilled, or it would just thinly sliced. Because every produce, it arrives in a different condition. It could, for example, tomato, it could arrive green or perfectly ripe or overripe sometimes. You can't really control that natural element. So we decide on the day itself whether we should cure it. We keep that crunchiness with its underripe, or when it's overripe, it's better to do a soup or a sorbet or an ice cream out of the tomato. Or when it's perfect ripe, we just peel it and then keep it perfect as it is. So in a way that we are following the produce and give it the best treatment that it should have, instead of, I call it a chef's ego, that I want to turn the produce into something that I want, but not really. For me, that's a bit against the nature. So that's the way we work. And when people or my team, that when they look at the produce, they will say, "Oh, chef, this is perfect for the pure elements. It's one of our elements." Or this is perfect when you do a dish of texture. Or that's the perfect dish for an artisan dish. So they don't force to turn the produce into something else. In a way that they listen to the produce and then say, that is perfect for one of our elements. So it's a different creating process, and also a different thinking process when it comes to food in our restaurant. My advice for the aspiring chefs is be simple and be curious. Be simple. When I first created a dish, or every time I create a different dishes or work a different produce, at first I ask myself, do I really like it? And I want to share that with my friends or my customers that comes to the restaurants. That you want to share that, when you did something good, you said, your first thing is you call your best friend and say, hey, check this out, I found out something really cool. It's the same kind of feeling. You want to share that with your customers. Not really trying to impress them in a way. So I think to keep a very simple mindset, that you want to share something that you like to your customers. Be curious. I never force myself to read a lot of cookbooks. Instead, I read the fashion magazines, I read the architect magazine, I do pottery, I paint, I do lots of things that seems like out of the culinary aspect, but that inspired me a lot. So always be curious about the things around you, and that could be anything around you can be your inspiration, that we just have to pay attention to it and be curious about everything around us.